late October of 2018, just a week before Halloween. The kind of night where the air feels heavy, where the streets are quiet enough that every sound, every car engine, every set of footsteps seems louder than it should. A college student named Lauren had just finished her night class. The lecture hall lights clicked off behind her as she stepped out into the parking lot, clutching her backpack and pulling her hoodie tighter around her shoulders. The campus was nearly empty. Most of her friends had already gone home hours ago. It was past 10:30, and she was tired, drained from midterm exams. She didn't have her car that week, so she ordered an Uber. The app showed a gray sedan, Toyota Camry, arriving in 3 minutes. Driver's name, Michael. She waited at the edge of the dimly lit lot, scrolling through her phone to keep her mind busy. A car pulled up a gray Camry, just like the app said. The driver rolled down his window. "You, Lauren?" the man asked. His voice was calm. "No." She glanced at the license plate. It was almost right 3 of the numbers matched, but the last digit was off. Lauren hesitated. I think it's supposed to end with a 7. The man gave a small chuckle. "Yeah, that's a glitch. Happens all the time with the app. They never update the plates right." He leaned over, gesturing to the passenger seat. "Hop in, I'll get you home." Her stomach twisted, but she pushed the feeling down. It was late. She was tired, and it was just 1 number off. She got in. The car smelled faintly of leather and something else, something metallic. Sharp, almost like rust. She buckled her seatbelt and checked the app again. Her driver was supposed to be Michael, age 34. The man behind the wheel looked older, mid-40s, maybe early 50s. Deep lines etched across his face, hands gripping the wheel tighter than normal. Still, she told herself she was overthinking. The car pulled away from campus. At first, everything seemed fine. The man asked casual questions, what her major was, where she was from. His tone was polite, but there was something in the way he looked at her in the rearview mirror, something that made her skin crawl. She kept her answers short. Minutes passed. She recognized the first few turns. Then, suddenly, the car veered off onto a side road she didn't recognize. Lauren leaned forward. "I think the GPS says to take Main Street." The driver didn't look back. "Yeah, I know a faster way." Her pulse quickened. The streetlights were gone now. The road stretched into long shadows, trees bending over the car like skeletal arms. Each passing mile took them farther from the city glow, deeper into silence. She opened her app, pretending to check her ride status. Her phone showed a thin blue line, her route home. But the little car on the screen was drifting farther and farther away from it. Her chest tightened. She sent a text to her roommate. "Hey, can you track my Uber? This thing feels off." No response. The signal bars flickered. She glanced up again. The driver was humming now, a low, tuneless sound. His eyes flicked to hers in the mirror, and he smiled. "You're quiet," he said. Lauren forced a laugh, just tired. The car turned onto a dirt road. No lights, no houses. Just the crunch of gravel under tires and the endless dark pressing against the windows. Her phone buzzed. A message from her roommate. "Your Uber just pulled up to campus. Where are you?" Her blood turned to ice. She wasn't in her Uber. She gripped her phone tight, heart pounding so hard she thought the driver could hear it. He kept driving, his smile growing wider in the mirror. Finally, Lauren forced herself to speak. "Do you pull over?" "I think I left something at school." The driver shook his head slowly. "Don't worry, we'll see you soon." Her mouth went dry. She realized she had 2 options: stay in the car and prior, get out now. She unlocked her door quietly, inching her hand toward the handle. The driver noticed. "You don't want to do that," he muttered. His voice was sharper now, darker. The car slowed as it approached the clearing, nothing but black trees on all sides. Lauren didn't wait. She threw the door open and jumped, hitting the gravel hard, scraping her knees and palms. Pain shot through her body, but she forced herself up and ran. Behind her, the car screeched to a stop. The driver shouted something she couldn't make out, his voice furious, echoing into the night. She sprinted into the trees, branches tearing at her hoodie, her lungs burning. She didn't stop until she saw headlights in the distant real road. She stumbled out, waving desperately at the first car that passed. A woman pulled over, terrified at the sight of her, but willing to help. Together, they called the police. When officers went back to the dirt road clearing, the gray Camry was gone. No tire tracks, no trace. Lauren's real Uber driver later confirmed he had been waiting at campus the entire time. The man she rode with was never identified, and sometimes she still dreams of that smile in the rearview mirror. It was a Friday evening in December of 2018. Just a couple of weeks before Christmas, the Willowbrook Mall in New Jersey was packed everywhere you looked. There were holiday decorations. Glittering ornaments dangled from the rafters. Wreaths lined the storefronts. And a massive Christmas tree stood proudly in the center of the atrium, glowing with thousands of tiny white lights. The air was alive with the smell of buttered pretzels, roasted almonds, and peppermint hot chocolate from the food court. Families shuffled around with bags in their arms, children tugging on coats, and music played over the speakers' cheerful carols, reminding everyone that the holiday season was in full swing. It felt safe, warm, comforting, but safety is fragile. Around 7:15 p.m., shoppers first noticed something odd. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, walking quickly through the mall with something hidden under his coat. To one woman, it looked like the long barrel of a rifle. Another thought maybe it was just an umbrella. Security was notified. And in today's world, nothing like that is ever ignored. Within minutes, sharp, calm announcement crackled over the loudspeakers. Attention, shoppers and staff. The mall is going into lockdown. Please remain where you are and follow all staff instructions immediately. The cheery holiday song cut off mid-verse. The chatter stopped, and then panic began. Store employees rushed to close metal gates, pulling them down with loud metallic clatters. Shoppers screamed, some running into the nearest store, others frozen in place. Parents clutched their children tightly, ducking into dressing rooms and bathrooms. The mall, once so alive, suddenly became a trap in a small shoe store near the north wing. A group of 6 teenagers had been joking around, trying on sneakers and wasting time. The moment the announcement hit, the young store clerk shouted for them to follow him. He herded them into the stockroom at the back, pulling the door shut and turning the lock. The light flickered once before, settling into a weak yellow glow. Everyone quiet, the clerk whispered, his voice low but sharp. Don't make a sound. The group pressed together between shelves of shoeboxes. The smell of rubber soles and cardboard filled the air. For the first few minutes, all they could hear were the sounds of chaos, outside feet pounding on the floor, people screaming, the slam of security gates. Then, silence. The kind of silence that makes you hear your own breathing too loudly. The teens exchanged nervous looks. One of them, a girl named Emily, clutched her phone so tightly her hands trembled. Another boy tapped his leg anxiously against the floor, the rhythmic thump filling the tiny room until the clerk snapped at him to stop. 5 minutes past 10. The silence pressed down heavier and heavier. Then came the footsteps, not slow, heavy, moving just outside the stockroom door. The clerk raised a finger to his lips. The group froze. The footsteps stopped directly in front of the door. The handle jiggled once, twice, then a low, dragging sound, as if something heavy was being scraped along the tile. One of the girls whimpered quietly. The clerk shot her a glare, mouthing, "Be quiet." Then, the voice, a low, rasping whisper, right on the other side of the door. "I know you're in there." Emily slapped her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her cheeks. Another boy shook his head violently, mouthing, "No, no, no." The clerk pressed his back against the door, as if that thin piece of wood could protect him. The whisper came again, this time softer, almost amused. "Come out. I just want to talk." Then a sound like fingernails scraping across the doorframe. Slow, purposeful. Minutes stretched like hours. Finally, the footsteps moved away. The group sat in stunned silence, too afraid to breathe, when the announcement finally came over the speakers. "All clear." Repeat, "All clear." Relief washed over them. They stumbled out into the store, their legs shaking, their eyes darting in every direction. The mall looked eerily normal again. Shops half open, shoppers stepping out cautiously, security officers patrolling the hallways. Some people even laughed nervously, brushing it off as a false alarm. But the group from the shoe store didn't laugh. They were pale, shaken because they knew what they had. Third, police swept the building from top to bottom. Every corridor, every restroom, every emergency exit. No weapon was found. No suspicious man was apprehended. When officers reviewed the surveillance footage, things became stranger. The cameras near the shoe store's hallway showed a tall man in dark clothing entering, walking directly to the stockroom door. He stood there for nearly 3 minutes, but the footage never showed him leaving. Not through the hallway, not through any exit. He was simply gone. The police told the group that maybe it was just a trick of the camera, a glitch, but none of them believed that. They had heard the footsteps. They had heard the whisper. To this day, those 6 teenagers rarely talk about what happened that night. And when they do, their voices drop low, their faces turn pale, and they all remember the same thing, that feeling of someone standing just on the other side of the door, smiling in the dark, whispering, "I know you're in there." It was the fall of 2018. Our high school was one of those massive brick buildings, long hallways that always seemed darker than they should be, even on bright days. By that point, lockdown drills had become routine. Everyone knew what to do. Lights off, doors locked, hide, stay quiet. But this wasn't a drill. It was a chilly Thursday afternoon when the announcement crackled through the intercom. The principal's voice came on, unusually shaky, and said, "This is a lockdown. Teachers, lock your doors. Students, stay silent." The tone was different from the usual monotone announcements we were used to. It wasn't calm. It was rushed, trembling. That was the first sign this was real. I was in my 3rd period English class when it happened. Our teacher immediately turned off the lights, locked the door, and ushered us toward the corner farthest from the windows. We all moved quickly, whispering nervously, until the room was completely dark. At first, there was that nervous, childish energy, a few stifled laughs, a couple of people whispering jokes, but it faded quickly when we realized no one outside was telling us it was just a drill. The silence in the hallways was heavy, unnatural. The only sounds were the occasional shuffle of a student trying to get comfortable on the cold floor. Then, footsteps. They weren't rushed, not panicked. They were slow, heavy, deliberate, walking down the hallway just outside our door. The sound of each step echoed against the lockers, carrying into the room. You could feel the tension in the air as everyone instinctively held their breath. The footsteps stopped right outside our classroom. Our teacher froze. She was crouched near the door, holding her phone with both hands. The screen dimmed. Her knuckles were white. Whoever was outside jiggled the handle gently. Once, twice, slowly, testing it. The sound of the locked metal handle rattling in the quiet room was almost unbearable. No one moved. Not a whisper, not a breath. Then, silence again. The footsteps resumed, moving down the hall. Some students started crying quietly. their faces buried in their knees. Others pressed their hands over their mouths, trying not to make a sound. My heart was pounding so hard, I was convinced it was loud enough for whoever was out there to hear. Minutes dragged on like hours. The faint red glow of the exit sign above the door was the only light in the entire room, casting eerie shadows across everyone's faces. My phone buzzed once in my pocket, a text from my mom asking if I was okay, because she'd seen something in the news about a situation at our school. I didn't dare move to answer it. Then came the sound that truly terrified me, a loud, metallic clang, like something heavy being dropped or thrown against the lockers. It echoed through the halls, followed by what sounded like someone dragging something metal across the floor. It went on for minutes, scraping, stopping, scraping again, and then whistling, a low, tuneless whistle floating down the hallway. Whoever it was didn't sound panicked, didn't sound rushed. They sounded calm, almost playful, like they knew exactly how much fear they were causing. At one point, the whistling stopped directly outside our door. The silence was suffocating. I swear I could hear the blood rushing in my ears. Then 3 slow knocks, right on our classroom door. No one moved. No one breathed. Even our teacher's face went pale after what felt like forever. The whistling started again, fading slowly as the footsteps moved farther down the hall. We stayed huddled there in the dark for nearly an hour. Every tiny noise, a creak in the building, a stomach growling, someone shifting against the wall made us all flinch. At one point, we heard a scream from somewhere in the building, distant but real. It was short, cut off almost instantly. No one knew if it was a student, a teacher, or something else entirely. When the lockdown finally ended, and the police came room by room to escort us out, the daylight outside felt almost blinding. Our entire class moved together like a single body, clinging to one another as we shuffled down the hallway. And here's the part that makes my stomach sink every time I think about it. As we passed the lockers near our classroom door, I saw deep, jagged scratch marks down the length of the metal, like someone had dragged a blade or sharp object across them over and over. And right beneath the scratches, scrawled in black marker, were the words, "I know you're in there." To this day, no one ever confirmed exactly what happened that afternoon. The school never gave us answers, only vague statements about suspicious activity and a potential threat that was safely handled. No arrests were ever mentioned, no names, no explanations, but I'll never forget that sound. The slow footsteps, the whistling, the scratches, and the chilling reality that someone or something had been right outside our door, enjoying the fear they caused. It was late 2018, just before winter break. The day had started like any other cold wind blowing across the parking lot. Students sluggish from exams, the gym filled with the echo of bouncing basketballs. We were midway through PE class when the announcement came over the intercom, but this time wasn't the calm, rehearsed tone of a drill. The principal's voice was trembling, urgent. "This is a lockdown. Teachers, secure your rooms. Students, stay silent." The sound of the basketball hitting the polished floor stopped instantly. Everyone froze. Our PE teacher, usually loud and confident, went pale. He immediately ran to the double doors, pulled them shut, and locked them with shaky hands. Then he told us all to get down. Now, the gymnasium was the worst place to be during a lockdown. It was too big to open. The bleachers didn't provide much cover, and the glass doors leading to the hallway offered a clear view inside if anyone walked past. Still, we had no choice. We crowded against the wall under the bleachers, trying to make ourselves invisible in the shadows. At first, the only sound was our teacher's whispering voice telling us to stay quiet, stay low. But soon we heard it, the sound of someone running through the hallways. Not fast, not panicked, just steady, deliberate footsteps. sneakers squeaking against the tile floors, going louder and louder. Then came the pounding. The first slam against the gym doors shook the glass panes, making a few of us stifle screams. Whoever it was hit the doors again and again, rattling them in their frames, the metal handles clanging with each impact. Our teacher gestured frantically for silence, his own face drenched in sweat. After several minutes, the pounding stopped, and then, almost mockingly, there was a single soft tap, like someone had just leaned close and gently knocked. A long silence followed, long enough that some of us started to think maybe it was over. But then we heard it, the sound of dragging, something heavy scraping across the floor just outside the gym, slow, deliberate, like they were moving something metallic back and forth. The sound echoed against the walls, filling the cavernous gym with dread, and then laughter got low, quiet, unsettling laughter. Not loud enough to sound like a joke, not playful, just this eerie, muffled chuckle that trailed off down the hallway. Our teacher pulled out his phone, texting furiously with what I assume was the office or police. His hands were shaking so hard that the phone's screen light flickered across his face, making him look ghostly pale. Minutes dragged into what felt like hours. Every tiny sound, a cough, a squeak of sneakers on the polished wood floor, someone shifting against the bleachers, seemed deafening. At one point, a girl next to me began crying silently, her hands pressed tightly over her mouth to keep the sobs in. Then, the sound that haunts me to this day, the gym doors began to creak. Slowly, someone was pressing against them, just enough to make them groan in their hinges, back and forth. A creak, then silence, then another creak. It was like whoever was out there wanted us to know they weren't leaving. They were waiting. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, the sounds faded. The footsteps grew distant. The building was silent again, except for the occasional muffled noise of someone shifting in the dark. When the police finally stormed in to escort us out, the relief was overwhelming. Floodlights shone through the glass doors, and officers with rifles called for us to move quickly but quietly. We sprinted out of the gym in groups, our teacher waving us toward the exits. As we were being rushed outside, I glanced back once, and that's when I saw it. Scratched into the paint of the gym doors were long, jagged lines, like someone had dragged a knife or sharp object across them over and over. Just beneath the scratches, written in black marker, the words, "Not safe in here either." The police never told us who it was or what exactly happened that day. They only said the situation was under control. No one was ever caught. No name, no arrest, no explanation. And even now, years later, I can still hear it if I close my eyes. The dragging sound, the creaking doors, and that low, mocking laughter echoing through the gymnasium. It was November of 2018. Our high school sat on the edge of town, surrounded by a patch of woods that always seemed a little too close for comfort. That morning had been ordinary enough. I was in the computer lab during the last period, working on a boring essay I hadn't wanted to write. The room was quiet, just a hum of computers and the occasional clack of keys. Then, without warning, the intercom crackled to life. The principal's voice came through, and it wasn't calm. It wasn't steady. It was shaky. "This is a lockdown. Teachers, lock your doors immediately. Students, remain silent." The room fell silent instantly. My teacher froze, then sprinted to the door, locking it and turning off the lights. The glow from 24 computer screens was the only illumination left. She whispered for us to get down, to crawl under the desks. We all obeyed. The rows of computers became our hiding spots, a tangle of wires brushing against our arms as we tried to make ourselves invisible. The hum of the machines suddenly felt deafening in the silence. For the first few minutes, all I could hear was the sound of my own breathing and the occasional shuffle of a classmate trying to get comfortable on the floor. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might echo off the walls. Then came the footsteps. They were faint at first, out in the hall, slow, unhurried. The sound of sneakers squeaking against the linoleum floor, moving closer and closer. Each step was deliberate, going down the hall like they had all the time in the world. The footsteps stopped just outside our door. No one breathed. No one dared move. The door handle rattled once, twice, slowly, like someone testing it, trying to see if it would open. The locked metal handle shook in the darkness, and I swear my teacher's hand tightened on her phone until her knuckles went white. Then came a sound that still chills me when I remember it. A single knock, slow, hollow, on our classroom door. Silence followed, so heavy you could almost hear the tension buzzing in the air. Someone in the back of the room muffled a sob, quickly covered by another student's hand. The knock came again, louder this time. Then again, faster. 3 sharp bangs that echoed down the hall. And then, laughter. It wasn't loud. It wasn't even clear. It was muffled, like whoever it was had their face pressed against the door. A low, unsettling chuckle that dragged on for far too long. After what felt like forever, the laughter faded. The footsteps started again, moving farther down the hall. For a moment, I thought it was over. But that's when the scratching started. It began faintly, the sound of something sharp dragging across metal, a high-pitched screech that made every hair on my body stand on end. It moved along a row of lockers just outside the computer lab, scraping, stopping, scraping again, back and forth, back and forth. The sound was deliberate, taunting, like whoever it was knew we were. Listening, we huddled there for what felt like an eternity. The glow of the computer screens cast pale blue light across our faces, making everyone look ghostly and terrified. A few of the computers went into sleep mode, one by one. The sudden click of the screens turning black, making several students flinch. Then came the part that still keeps me awake. Sometimes through the narrow strip of glass in the classroom door, the tiny window covered halfway by construction paper, I saw movement, just the faintest shadow, a head leaning close. Someone was standing there, peering in. I couldn't see a face, just the outline, but they stood there, completely still, for what had to be several minutes, not moving, not speaking, just watching. Eventually, the shadow shifted, and the footsteps faded again, heading down the hall. The scratching sound stopped. The building grew eerily quiet. We stayed in that room for over an hour, crouched under those desks, every muscle aching, too afraid to move. When the police finally came to escort us out, their flashlights cutting through the dark, I felt a wave of relief so strong I almost cried. We filed out quickly, the officers urging us to keep our heads down and move fast. But just as we were leaving, I glanced back at the door, and my stomach dropped. On the narrow strip of glass where I'd seen the shadow earlier, smeared across it in what looked like black marker, were 3 words. I saw you. The school never gave us answers. They told us the threat had been contained and that everyone was safe, but no one was ever named. No one was arrested. The halls went back to normal the next week, as if nothing had ever happened. But for me, I'll never forget the sound of those knocks, the scratching, the shadow watching through the glass, and most of all, I'll never forget those words, written right where my eyes had been looking out. I saw you.